October 29, 2008, Giles County, Tennessee. The video started like most teen ghost hunting uploads in the early YouTube era: shaky camcorder footage, breathy commentary, and cheap night vision effects. The file was titled simply, "Exploring Candle Street Orphanage at 3 a.m. It opens on 4 high schoolers, Reese, Tyler, Lizzie, and Harper, standing before the crumbling brick facade of a long-abandoned building. Behind them, the skeletal remains of the Candle Street Orphanage loomed like a mausoleum. Windows were blackened, the roof partially collapsed, and ivy strangled the upper walls. The gate creaked open as if it had been waiting for someone to come back. Tyler, the one holding the camera, whispered, "It's cold as hell, and I swear I just saw something in that window." "Reese, are you sure this is safe?" Reese, tall and cocky, laughed. "Don't be such a baby. It's a bunch of burned wood and ghost stories. Let's make this viral." It would be the last video ever uploaded from that account. Candle Street Orphanage burned to the ground in February 1947. The official report cited an accidental electrical fire, but over the decades, that story unraveled. Newspapers from the time speak of neighbors who heard children screaming before the fire started. Witnesses described candlelight in every window, though the orphanage had electricity. Most chilling was the discovery that the matron, Agnes Rowe, vanished the night of the fire. She was neither seen fleeing nor found in the ruins. Instead, the only trace of her was a melted ring embedded in the stone hearth and the final page of her diary, which read, "The light will not go out tonight. Emily has promised. They'll all be quiet now." The teens crossed the threshold. Their flashlight beams swept across scorched beams, soot-covered toys, and broken dolls strewn across the ash-coated floor. "I'm getting EMF spikes," Lizzie said, holding a device she clearly didn't understand. "That means ghosts, right?" "Yeah," Harper muttered, gripping her hoodie tighter. "Or exposed wiring in a fire trap. Let's not stay long." But the group kept moving. Tyler's camera caught strange reflections in the glassless windows, figures darting just beyond the light, too fast to see clearly. The audience, watching later, would slow the footage down. What they found made the story explode online. In one freeze frame at 6:47, a pale child's face could be seen staring out from behind a fallen door, mouth wide, black soot ringing her eyes. None of the teens noticed. They entered what remained of the common room. On the far wall, dozens of charred drawings were tacked in uneven rows, miraculously untouched by flame. Stick figures. Children holding hands. One drawing repeated over and over, a tall woman holding a candle with a ring of children kneeling around her. At 11:12 in the video, Reese pointed at a door in the corner. "That must have been the basement," he said, "where they hid when the fire started." He forced the door open. The camera jolted. Tyler swore, "Did you feel that? It got cold." Harper's breath visibly fogged. They descended the stairs. The smell hit them before the bottom: damp wood, mildew, and something sweet, rotting. Then Lizzie gasped. There, at the foot of the stairs, someone had drawn fresh crayon markings, a spiral encircling a name. "Emily." The video cut suddenly. Just static. Then, for exactly 9 seconds, a single frame held. A charred wall. A child's drawing tacked to it. The drawing showed a girl sleeping in bed. Over her, a tall figure with a melted face held a candle, flames dripping down its arm like wax. At the bottom of the page, in jagged red crayon, "She never left." Then static again. That's where the video ends for most viewers. But a few digital sleuths, using frame-by-frame recovery, found something at the tail end, just 3 frames long. Almost invisible. In those frames, Reese's helmet, spinning slowly in the center of the basement floor. No one around. 3 hours after the footage ended, Giles County Emergency Services received a call from a payphone near the interstate. A girl was screaming incoherently. The call lasted 13 seconds before going dead. They traced it. It was Harper. She was found lying in the middle of Route 147, barefoot, bleeding from her feet, her clothes scorched at the edges. Her hair was singed. Her eyes were dilated. She couldn't speak, only whisper. "She never left, she never left." Harper was institutionalized the next day. The others were never found. The Candle Street Orphanage was sealed again, this time with concrete. Police entered once before sealing it off. According to the official report, they found for half-burned candles arranged in a circle, a mattress in the basement, a child's handprint burned into the stone wall, still warm to the touch. An officer on the scene reportedly quit that night and left the state. His note to the department read simply, "She asked me to blow out the candle. I didn't." She smiled. The footage was pulled from YouTube within 48 hours, but copies remain. And if you play it back slowly, right at 06:47, you might see her. The girl with the ash-ringed eyes. Just don't say her name out loud. February 3rd, 2009, Giles County Sheriff's Department. Detective Rhonda Selby had spent 20 years unraveling Appalachian cold cases. But what she found buried in the Candle Street file unsettled her in a way no murder ever had. She was reviewing the list of children who perished in the 1947 fire when she noticed something strange. One name, Emily R. was written in pencil. All others were typed on a typewriter that hadn't been used since 1946. She followed up with the county registrar. "There's no birth certificate," the clerk said. "No parents. No record she ever existed. But her name was on the wall of the orphanage, burned into the doorframe, scribbled in crayon under desks, etched into the mattress frame in the sealed basement. Emily R. Rhonda dug into archived correspondence between the matron, Agnes Rowe, and the Tennessee Department of Welfare. Most of it was mundane supply requests, illness reports, inspection forms, until one letter stood out, dated November 12, 1946, just 3 months before the fire, written in Agnes's looping cursive. "She came back again last night, 3rd time this week, always humming that same hymn. I tried to ask her name, but she pointed at the candle and whispered, 'You already know. I've asked the other children. They say she's always been here.' It was signed with a line scratched so hard it tore the paper. 'Keep the lights burning.' The letter was never mailed. Harper, the only survivor of the 2008 incident, remained in the county psychiatric facility. She didn't speak, eat much, or sleep. But on the 3rd night after admission, a nurse caught her whispering something in her sleep. The phrase, 'It's her room now.' She'd repeat it whenever the lights went out, over and over. On her 5th night, nurses found her bed completely surrounded by crayon drawings. None of them had given her crayons. None had entered her room. They reviewed the security footage. At 3:09 a.m., a shadow, child-sized, appeared in the corner of the frame. The camera glitched. The next 30 seconds were pure static. When the image returned, the girl was gone, but the crayons were on the bed. Detective Selby returned to the orphanage ruins with a forensic team and a state permit, granted reluctantly after public outcry from conspiracy groups online. In the back corner of what had once been the schoolroom, they unearthed a scorched but partially intact attendance ledger from 1946 to 47. Page after page listed names with dates next to them, sign-ins, illnesses, notes from teachers. And there, at the very bottom of every week, Emily R. present. Emily R. present. Emily R. present. But no one initialed the entries. And on 2 weeks, a different handwriting appeared, messy and childlike. Still the same name. One note stood out, scribbled in red pencil. "She doesn't need breakfast anymore. The candle feeds her." Rhonda reached out to the state archive director. She asked for the full list of Candle Street residents and intake records from 1930 to 1947. The reply came swiftly, but without substance. No orphan by the name of Emily R. was ever officially processed through the Tennessee State Orphanage system. Any mentions are errors or unofficial notes. "Please do not pursue further." Rhonda found that odd, especially when her office phone rang the next day from a blocked number. A man whispered, "She remembers you now," and hung up. 2 weeks after her institutionalization, Harper finally spoke during a midnight storm. She was found standing in her room, barefoot, hands covered in crayon dust. She had drawn a candle on the wall, 12 times, all identical, all burning. She turned to the nurse and asked, "Do you want to know her real name?" The nurse froze. Harper smiled. "It's not Emily. It's not a name you should say." Then she tore the fire alarm from the wall, set off the sprinklers, and began screaming at the ceiling. "She's looking through the cracks." She was sedated and transferred to isolation. The drawings reappeared the next day. A week later, Rhonda received a package. No return address. Inside, a charred photograph of 20 children sitting on the steps of the orphanage. One child had been crudely scratched out, except her eyes, which were still visible. A note on the back. She was never enrolled. She was always underneath. Also included, a burned corner of what appeared to be a diary page. She asked me if she could keep the skin this time. I said no. She cried. The candle flickered. Then it went out, and I forgot my own name. Rhonda turned the envelope inside out. There, drawn in what looked like dried red crayon, a spiral. On March 9, 2009, a wing of the psychiatric facility caught fire. No patients were harmed, but Harper's room was reduced to black ash, except her drawings, untouched, still perfectly visible on the walls. Investigators claimed it was faulty wiring, but Rhonda had already been there that morning. Harper had drawn one more thing. A stick figure labeled Detective R, standing in front of a burning building with a smaller figure behind her holding a candle. The caption? "You saw her. She saw you." March 15, 2009, Giles County Archives Restricted Section. Detective Rhonda Selby hadn't slept properly in days. Not since the fire at the psychiatric facility. Not since Harper's last drawing. And definitely not since Rhonda had caught her own reflection moving a split second out of sync while brushing her teeth. She needed answers. That led her here, into the musty restricted wing of the archives where local historian Dr. Leonard Sims kept the "We Don't Talk About That" files. What he handed her was a locked gray binder labeled "Only." Row Agnes Internal Notes. Inside were 67 handwritten rules. The rules of Candle Street Orphanage extracts. Agnes Rowe had run the orphanage from 1932 to 1947. To the outside world, she was stern but saintly, a woman of routine, discipline, and devotion. But her private rules painted a much darker picture. Rule 4. Children who speak of the girl in the walls must be separated immediately and not spoken to after sundown. Rule 9. If the candle in the chapel flickers twice without wind, cover all mirrors and do not answer whispers until sunrise. Rule 13. Do not allow any child named Emily to remain past their 7th birthday. We do not make that mistake again. Rule 22. Crayons must be counted every night. If one is missing, it means she has taken something to draw with. Rule 31. If a child reports hearing singing in reverse, evacuate the west wing and light the hearth. Pray she forgets this visit. Rule 47. Do not mention fire in front of the children after February. They remember too much. Rhonda's hands trembled as she turned to the final page. In different handwriting, slanted, frantic, someone had scrawled. She told me a new rule last night. Rule 68. Don't read the rules out loud. Dr. Sims told her something else. There was a 4th wing to Candle Street, not shown on most blueprints. Added in 1943 as a quiet dormitory for unadoptable children. But no records of its construction existed. No permits. No blueprints. No maintenance logs. Only one blurry photo taken during a school recital showed a hallway behind the chapel that didn't match any known layout. The hallway ended in blackness. And standing in the distance, a small girl, alone, slightly blurred. No name tag. No shoes. Just a white dress and a candle. In a locked drawer within the rules binder was a single page torn from a journal. The handwriting matched Agnes Rowe's earlier letters. The girl doesn't age. I've kept her separate, away from the others. But they always find her. Like she calls to them through the walls. Like she belongs to them now. They asked if she could go outside. I said no. She smiled. The candle went out. When it came back on, all the cribs were empty. There is no adoption paper for Emily. Because she was never left here. She was buried here. And she came back through the cracks. Rhonda rewatched the original 2008 video, now recovered frame by frame. At timestamp 2:42, the group is laughing in the entryway. Tyler jokes about finding ghost babies. Lizzie is setting up her fake EMF reader. But now, in the left-hand corner, a figure is visible. Just a child. Standing silently behind a broken beam, one eye peeking through a soot-smeared curtain. Rhonda zoomed in. No shoes. No reflection. Candle in hand. She hadn't been there before. That night, Rhonda's bathroom mirror cracked clean down the center. No sound. No warning. Just a spiderweb split from edge to edge. On the fogged glass, as she stepped out of the shower, she saw a spiral, drawn in fingertip smudge. That was the moment she knew Emily was not just a ghost. She was a rule that broke all the others. Dr. Sims unearthed one final document, a letter from a teacher at Candle Street mailed days before the fire. Dear Mother, I fear this may be my last letter. There's something here, something beneath the routine. Agnes won't let anyone talk about Emily. But she's here. She's always been here. Last night, I heard singing in the East Wing. The children were asleep, but their mouths were moving. They were singing with her. Agnes says it's the hymn of keeping. I think it's the hymn of burning. The teacher's body was never found. Rhonda returned to the orphanage grounds, now fenced off and collapsing under decades of decay. But something new had appeared. On the doorframe of the scorched basement hatch. A fresh scratch. 5 fingernail gouges. Child-sized, as if someone inside had tried to push their way out again. And carved just above them in cracked wood. Rule 69, she likes it better in the dark. April 2nd, 2009, Giles County, Tennessee. At exactly 2:13 a.m., a fire tore through the old Rowland residence, home of Tyler Grady, one of the missing teens from the 2008 Candle Street exploration. There was no power running to the house, no gas line, no accelerants, and no one inside. Tyler had been declared legally missing for 5 months, but neighbors reported hearing someone singing from the attic an hour before the blaze. A soft, off-key child's voice humming something that sounded like a lullaby, repeating just 5 words. Light the candle. She waits. Fire crews arrived within 15 minutes, but the house was already engulfed. Witnesses said the flames seemed to move against the wind, licking at the foundation like fingers searching for a crack. When the fire was finally subdued, the home was reduced to smoldering rubble. Everything was gone, except the bathtub. The porcelain clawfoot tub on the 2nd floor stood untouched, clean, dry, and undamaged. Inside it was a drawing sealed in plastic. A childlike sketch of the Rowland house burning. And a girl with black eyes smiling inside the flames. At the county psychiatric ward, Harper was found pacing in her room, muttering a new phrase. She's out now. She's in the ash. Staff noted she had drawn exactly 22 new pictures on her walls. One for each child who had died in the 1947 fire. But there was a 23rd drawing hidden under her bed. It was labeled Tyler. In the picture, he was shown walking calmly through the burning house, hand in hand with a small girl. Her eyes were 2 perfect spirals. Investigators scoured the ruins of the Rowland home. They found something strange in the upstairs hallway. Bare footprints. Small. They began in the center of a charred room, circled the tub, and led toward the wall. But they disappeared mid-step, like the child had simply vanished into smoke. Lab analysis showed no human tissue, no skin cells, no soot between the toes. As if the prints were pressed into the ash from below. 3 days later, Lizzie Grant's parents of another missing teen, found something resting on their front porch. A candle. White. Unlit. Burned halfway down. Wrapped around its base, red yarn and a slip of paper that read. She still likes Lizzie's laugh. It echoes best. There were no fingerprints. No tire tracks. No sign of anyone approaching the house. But when Mrs. Grant lit the candle, the flame turned blue and would not go out, not even when she dropped it into a sink full of water. She told the police she heard giggling from the hallway all night after that. The candle burned for 23 hours straight. In town, graffiti began to appear overnight. Drawn in what looked like chalk, ash, or crayon, no one was ever caught doing it. On garage doors, mailboxes, park benches, even gravestones. Always the same spiral. Always in red. Some townsfolk began reporting vivid dreams, standing in a circle of children, all holding candles, chanting something just outside the edge of understanding. One man said he saw a girl crouched at the foot of his bed, drawing spirals on the blanket while he slept. When he woke, his bedsheet had a scorched ring in the center. He moved out the next day. Tyler's YouTube account, long dormant, suddenly reactivated. At 3:14 a.m., a new video was uploaded. It was 1 second long. The thumbnail showed only blackness. But the audio? A whispered voice speaking directly into the mic. I walked through the fire. She waited. Lizzie next. The video was deleted within minutes, but not before 274 people saw it. Comments flooded in. I heard the same voice in my hallway. Why did it say my name? There's ash in my sink and I don't know why. Tyler's login was traced. The IP address came from inside Candle Street Orphanage. That weekend, an abandoned grain silo on the outskirts of Giles County erupted in flames. There was no known ignition source. The fire department reported the blaze burned in a perfect spiral pattern centered on a pile of melted crayon wax. They also found a shoe. A girl's shoe. Child-sized, labeled in marker, L. Grant. Lizzie's parents never spoke to the media again. They moved away the next morning. Detective Rhonda Selby had finally obtained permission to unseal a safety deposit box that belonged to Agnes Rowe. It had been kept untouched for over 60 years. Inside, a single white candle burned to the base, a wooden music box that played an eerie lullaby in reverse, and a tattered sheet of paper with rule number 70. When the fire returns, she chooses a new child. If you see her, do not run. She remembers everyone who ran. Rhonda realized something horrifying. The fire at Candle Street never ended. It just moved, one house at a time. April 11, 2009, burned soil south of Candle Street. 3 days after the spiral fire in the silo, a boy named Colton Wexler went missing. 10 years old, lived 3 blocks from the old orphanage ruins. His mother had gone to the bathroom. He was coloring on the floor. When she came back, he was gone. The only thing left behind? A crayon sketchbook, old, covered in soot. Not Colton's, not his family's. Inside were 23 pages, drawn in red, black, and waxy yellow. Each page showed a child. Each child was on fire. Each child's name was labeled. Colton's page was the 24th, drawn in fresh wax. Detective Rhonda Selby had the book tested. The crayon was decades old. The paper was manufactured in 1944. There were no fingerprints, but every image matched known victims of the 1947 orphanage fire, right down to hair color, scars, and even missing teeth. Then there were the last 3 pages. Pages 25, 26, and 27. They showed a man in a police uniform burning in front of a chalkboard, a girl in a hospital gown walking through flames, the detective sitting at a desk, her reflection in the window drawn as a spiral. The name beneath the last one? Selby. The book had a ripped section, a torn-out page. Its outline was visible in wax residue. The sketch had been removed recently. Security footage from the evidence locker showed no one entering overnight. But at 2:14 a.m., the camera glitched. When it returned, the sketchbook was open, a single crayon resting on top. Red, freshly used. Harper's room, 3 a.m. In her isolation room, Harper had scratched something into her wall using her fingernails. Spirals over and over, overlapping like overlapping flames. Nurses reported her whispering in her sleep. She's drawing again. She likes this crayon better. That night, her 4-bag boiled from the inside. The nurse on call was burned trying to change it. She said the fluid hissed Emily's name before the plastic melted in her hands. Dr. Leonard Sims, the archivist, contacted Rhonda with a new lead. Back in 1946, a man named Norman Belcher had visited Candle Street Orphanage. He was a children's book illustrator and had been hired to sketch portraits of the orphans for adoption files. His notes were recovered from his estate in 1971. The last entry: "One girl wouldn't let me draw her. She kept erasing herself from the page. No matter how many times I tried, her face wouldn't stay. She handed me a red crayon and said, 'Let me show you instead.' I let her. I shouldn't have." Norman disappeared a month later. His body was never found. His final sketch was recovered from his studio. A girl with spirals in her eyes, surrounded by 23 flames. April 14th. Rhonda arrived at her office to find a drawing resting on her chair. The same girl, same spirals. This time, she was standing in front of Rhonda's house. The date written in crayon below? April 16th. 2 days away. Then something impossible happened. Colton's mother received a voicemail. It was from Colton's number. The number had been deactivated by police. The message was exactly 6 seconds long. "I'm drawing now. She's helping me. Don't blow out the candle." Click. His voice was calm, happy even. That night, Rhonda stayed in her office. She taped every mirror, left on all the lights, burned sage, said prayers she hadn't said in 20 years. At 2:56 a.m., her phone buzzed. Unknown number, no caller ID. The screen flashed once, then died. And when she turned back to her desk, there was a new drawing waiting, still warm to the touch. It showed her asleep, the candle on her nightstand slowly melting as the spiral widened in the background. And at the bottom, drawn in glowing crayon. Don't fall asleep tonight. You're next. The next morning, the sketchbook in evidence had a new page. Page 28. Drawn while locked in a fireproof case. It showed the Candle Street Orphanage rebuilt in fire, children watching from the windows, and one girl out front, holding a spiral-shaped candle. Underneath, a phrase not seen before. She didn't die in the fire. She was born from it. April 17, 2009, Candle Street reopened. After 2 weeks of mounting community pressure, mysterious fires, and a missing child, Giles County authorities made a decision they'd avoided for over 6 decades. Reopen the sealed basement beneath Candle Street Orphanage. Detective Rhonda Selby wasn't just allowed to join the team. She insisted. Something in her gut told her she wouldn't get another chance. Not after the sketch on her desk. Not after what it showed happening tonight. The crew wore hazmat suits and oxygen tanks. 3 men, 1 detective. They cracked the concrete seal with drills. The air that poured out was warm. They descended 12 steps into a narrow shaft of stone and soot. The stairs were damp. Burnt wallpaper peeled off in ribbons. The flashlight beams caught dust dancing like ash. At the bottom, a door, black and splintered. It had something nailed across it. A child's drawing, faded from time, barely legible. It showed a girl in a room underground. In the corner sat a chair. In front of her, a hole in the floor, perfectly round, with black spirals curling outward. At the top of the drawing, written in broken lettering, "I draw the cracks." She crawls out. When they opened the door, it creaked like a scream. The air changed. The basement chamber was larger than expected. Crumbling stone walls. Remains of small beds lined against one side, burned to the springs. And in the center, a massive wooden chair. Too large. The scale was all wrong. Over 6 feet tall. Arms as thick as railroad ties. Nailed symbols covered the legs, spirals, X's, repeated words like stay, wait, and BG. On the seat, a melted candle. Still warm. In the corner, they found something worse. A cradle. Wooden. Charred. Inside was a doll made entirely of wax and human hair. Its eyes were gouged out. Its mouth sewn shut with red thread. The wax was dripping as if it had just been pulled from a fire. And beneath the cradle, a trapdoor. Unsealed. Rhonda knelt. Her flashlight beam barely touched what lay below. She saw spirals scratched into stone. Walls packed with crayon drawings. And something that shimmered red moving. Something that looked up. And smiled. One of the crew, Officer Gaines, stumbled backward, tripping over the chair. His flashlight rolled across the floor. Suddenly, the candle on the seat flared blue, then snapped out. The room fell dark. And from the trapdoor below came the sound. Crayons scratching. Dozens of them. As if a whole class of children were drawing in the dark. Then humming. Soft. Crooked. A tune that didn't quite follow melody. Rhonda shouted to retreat. But it was already too late for one of them. Officer Leonard Gaines never made it out. They found his helmet at the edge of the trapdoor the next day. Spinning. Inside it, a drawing of him. Stick figure. Burning. And behind him in the sketch, a girl with 2 faces. One smiling. The other blank. The caption? He broke Rule 9. He answered the whisper. Rhonda had it shut immediately. Triple locked, rebarred and concreted with holy water mixed into the seal. But the footage from the body cam survived. The last 30 seconds showed Gaines backing toward the door. And in the background, from the trapdoor, a small hand reached up. Too many fingers. And holding a red crayon. Giles County residents began to panic. People reported scratch marks appearing on their bedroom doors. One local pastor claimed his church bell rang at 3:14 a.m. despite having no rope. Inside the church, drawn in wax on the altar. "You opened it. We're drawing now." At the psychiatric facility, Harper sat bolt upright at midnight. She hadn't spoken in days. Nurses ran in to check on her. She was staring at the wall where she had drawn a new spiral with something red. It wasn't crayon. It was blood. She turned to the nurse and whispered, "You saw the chair? That wasn't for the children. That was for her." Dr. Sims found one more fragment buried in the old orphanage logs. A water-damaged slip and signed, a prayer or a warning. She was the first child never born. She didn't come here in a car. She came through the floor. And we gave her a name. That was the mistake. She doesn't burn. She draws. And when the drawings are finished, the fire comes again. April 22, 2009, Westfield Cemetery, Giles County. Detective Rhonda Selby arrived just after sunrise. She stood before the oldest corner of the cemetery where 22 small headstones formed a near-perfect circle. Some had eroded from decades of wind and rain. Others had been replaced, their etchings recarved by sympathetic hands. Each stone bore the name of a child. Each child had perished in the Candle Street fire of 1947. Except one. In the center of the circle sat a 23rd grave. A jagged, blackened slab of limestone, no name, no dates. Just a single spiral, deeply carved, surrounded by cracks like heat fractures. According to burial records, that plot had been officially marked as vacant. No child was buried there. It had simply appeared 1 week after the fire, stone already in place. Some called it Emily's grave. But the truth was worse. Because on that morning in 2009, groundskeeper Sam Elkins found something strange. The earth above that grave had cracked open. It wasn't dug up. It had burst, soil lifted, splintered from the inside. Worse, a pattern had emerged from the loosened dirt. A spiral, about 3 feet wide, burnt into the grass itself, as if the fire had come from beneath. Rhonda had the site cordoned off immediately. She wasn't sure what she expected to find, but she wasn't expecting the nail-scratched markings on the underside of the unmarked stone. I didn't die here. I waited. 2 days later, in a town 40 miles north, a girl wandered out of the woods barefoot and silent. She was around 9 years old. Thin. Eyes like coals. Covered in soot. She couldn't or wouldn't speak. She was taken into custody and examined. No matches were found in missing children's databases. She had no fingerprints. But what chilled Rhonda most was this. The child was clutching a crayon in her left hand. Red. Melted down to an up. When they finally gave her paper, she drew 22 small figures holding candles. And above them, a name. Emily R. Rhonda requested exhumation of one of the graves, Gracie Hollowell, age 8. The body had been buried intact, casket sealed. But when they opened it, the coffin was burned from the inside. Bones scorched. And on the inside lid of the casket, a spiral. Drawn in red wax. Lab tests confirmed the wax matched the crayon found in the new girl's hand. The casket had not been opened since 1947. On April 26th, just after midnight, the bell at St. Wilhelmina's Chapel began ringing on its own. No wind. No entry. Security alarms still armed. When the priest arrived, he found every single candle in the sanctuary lit. There were 23 candles. One for each child. Drawn in wax on the altar, another spiral. The priest lit the emergency sprinklers, but the water turned to ash as it fell. Within minutes, the church walls were blackened. Not burned, charred without fire. No heat. No flame. Just the evidence of something that had already passed through. Dr. Sims returned with more troubling news. An older map of Westfield Cemetery dated 1946 before the fire showed only 21 plots in the children's circle. After the fire, the number jumped to 23. But there were only 22 recorded burials. That meant one grave appeared without permission. No paperwork. No coffin. Just a stone with a spiral and a cracked slab that bled when it rained. Harper had been silent for days, curled into herself like a knot of nerves. But after the church event, she finally spoke. To Rhonda. In a whisper. She didn't want to be buried. She wanted to draw more. They buried her crayon with her. That's what trapped her. But now it's gone. Now she can finish the picture. Rhonda asked who gave her this information. Harper looked up. Smiled. She did. On April 28th, 3 separate witnesses reported seeing a figure standing at the edge of the children's circle at sunset. Each described the same thing. A girl in white, barefoot, holding something in both hands. When they tried to approach, the figure didn't move. But the spiral on the central grave began glowing red. They ran. They all agreed. The girl had no eyes, just hollow dark circles. And her lips never moved. She just watched. By the next week, 28 spiral graffiti tags were found across Giles County. Each was drawn with the same wax composition. No suspects. No witnesses. No surveillance footage. Every person who tried to scrub the spiral clean reported the same thing later that night. Coughing ash. Nightmares of candles melting upward. And a hum that didn't stop when they woke up. One cleaner woke to find her bed surrounded by melted crayons. No one believed her. Until she disappeared the next night. Her pillow left smoldering. May 2, 2009, Giles County Emergency Dispatch. The first call came from a 911 operator. She'd been working alone on the night shift. Just after 2 a.m., all 8 lines went dead at once, except for one. Line 7. There was no caller ID, no incoming number. But the operator said she could hear breathing on the other end. Then a sound like a crayon scratching paper. Then, faintly, "Are you still listening?" She tried to speak. The line crackled. A second voice, deeper, distant, layered beneath the first. "We're drawing you now." The call cut. The office lights flickered red once. She went home and never returned to work. The next day, 14 families across Giles County reported strange dust blowing through their vents. It wasn't pollen. It wasn't soot. It was fine ash, light red in color like powdered crayon. When touched, it left spiral-shaped smears on skin. A child in one home, 6-year-old Maxie Palmer, began coughing in the night. Her mother went to check on her and found her standing on the bed, humming. She was drawing spirals on the wall with her finger in the ash from her lungs. Rhonda received a call from Dr. Leonard Sims. Something had been found in the foundation of the original orphanage during a survey, an air duct that hadn't appeared on any blueprint. They broke into it. What they found inside made the entire team back away. Hundreds of child-sized fingerprints in ash lined the duct. Some large, some tiny. As if a dozen children had crawled through over time, dragging soot as they went. And in the very center of the duct wall, a spiral, still warm. A terrified mother sent Rhonda an audio file she captured on her baby monitor. It was recorded at 3:07 a.m. Her infant son had been asleep. The monitor was static. Then a child's voice began humming a melody. The same strange hymn Rhonda had heard on body cam footage from the Candle Street basement. After 30 seconds, the monitor crackled again and a whisper came through. "We miss her. She was always the best at drawing us." Then, a click. The monitor turned off on its own. A psychiatrist named Dr. Verlin Cross had been treating locals reporting similar nightmares. A girl in a white dress standing beside their bed. A candle melting upward. A spiral on the ceiling slowly opening like a wound. He recorded dream accounts from 17 different patients. Each drew the same thing during post-sleep interviews. A spiral. A red crayon. A chair. A voice saying draw or burn. One patient gouged her own palm during the session and said, "She said this is the pencil now." On May 6th, Harper was found unconscious. Not dead. Not injured. But frozen, her hand midair, holding a piece of broken tile, dragging it across the floor. She had drawn a spiral large enough to cover her entire room. In the center, she'd written a sentence. "She's almost done with the picture. When it's finished, we're inside it." Harper hasn't spoken since. That night, Rhonda came home to find the spiral drawn in condensation on every mirror in her house. She wiped one clean. It reappeared. She tried smashing it. Underneath the broken mirror, a crayon, red, wrapped in a note. "You've seen too much. Now we draw you too." The power went out. She sat in darkness for 2 hours. When the lights returned, her wall was covered in ash handprints, all facing inward as if something was looking out from behind it. Giles County residents began reporting movement inside their walls. Knocking, crawling sounds, breathing through vents, spirals appearing inside glass panes as if drawn from within. One man woke to find his hardwood floor warped in the shape of a spiral. When he stepped onto it, the wood sank and a voice came from beneath. "We made you a room too." He moved out that day. His house burned down that night. No source found. No wires. Just the same melted crayon residue found at the scene. On May 9th, Rhonda received one final sketch left on her windshield in broad daylight. It showed the town of Giles. Every house drawn in crayon. And around it, a massive spiral. Inside the spiral, every face she'd seen, Harper, Tyler, Lizzie, Colton, herself. And at the very center, a girl. Faceless. Holding a candle in one hand and a mirror in the other. Beneath the drawing. The picture is almost finished. And once it's done, we all burn. May 11th, 2009, 2:14 a.m. The emergency room at Giles County General fell into chaos. Security cameras captured the moment a barefoot girl in a white, soot-stained dress walked through the hospital's automatic doors without them opening. No one saw her enter. But suddenly, she was standing in the hallway, eyes fixed on the pediatric ward. She wasn't breathing hard. She wasn't blinking. And she wasn't alone. Because the lights behind her flickered and the hallway behind her filled with ash swirling backward as if being drawn in from another world. It was Lizzie. When nurses finally got close enough, they recognized her. Lizzie Grant, declared missing since 2008 after the Candle Street livestream. She hadn't aged. She hadn't eaten. She hadn't spoken until now. She looked directly at the nurse and said, in a language no one could identify, a single sentence. The only words that were clear were, "Emily is ready." Then she passed out. Rhonda visited her the next morning. Lizzie was alive but distant, eyes unfocused, skin cold. Beneath her fingernails, wax. She was drawing on the walls of her room. Endless spirals. And in the center of each spiral, a word. The same word over and over. "Come back." Rhonda asked, "Who wants me to come back?" Lizzie didn't look up, but her lips moved. "She does." She liked the chair. She's still sitting in it. That same night, a candle appeared in Rhonda's home. White, thick, sitting in the center of her kitchen floor. She didn't light it, but it began to burn anyway. In reverse, the wax pulled upward, collecting back into the wick, reforming the candle until it was whole again. Then it went out, and across her kitchen tiles, drawn in condensation. Time to redraw what burned. Dr. Sims called at 3 a.m., panic in his voice. He had discovered that the full spiral seen in all the drawings was not just a symbol. It was a floor plan. When overlaid on the map of Giles County, the spiral's lines matched. Every unexplained fire, every child disappearance, every grave, every vent that filled with ash. And at the center of the spiral, the Candle Street basement, still sealed, still warm. A linguistics expert from the University of Tennessee analyzed the audio of Lizzie's voice. It wasn't a real language. It was inverted Latin, reversed phonetically and spoken in triplicate rhythms like a chant. But 3 words, when reversed and isolated, were clear. Draw. Light. Inside. As if the voice didn't want to be heard as much as it wanted to become you. Harper awoke from her catatonia. She was screaming. They rushed in to sedate her, but before they could, she grabbed Rhonda's wrist and hissed, "Don't follow her in. If you see the candle in the mirror, you're already gone." She's inside Lizzie now, but she's making more room. And then, one final phrase, clearer than any she'd said before. She said, "You're the last spiral." That night, Rhonda noticed something strange on her upstairs window. From the outside, it was fogged over. But from the inside, it wasn't fog. It was a perfect spiral etched in soot, visible only by candlelight. And behind it, reflected in the window, a girl with black eyes. Not Rhonda, not Lizzie, but someone older, taller, with a smile drawn on with crayon. At exactly 3:14 a.m., Rhonda's phone rang. Caller ID blocked. A child's voice whispered her name. Then, "We redrew the basement. Come back. She wants to sit in your chair." Click. Her phone screen cracked from the inside. The next morning, Lizzie was gone. Room empty. Window open. And on the bed, a final sketch. It showed Rhonda walking down the orphanage steps. Behind her, the others, Tyler, Lizzie, Colton, Harper, all holding candles. And at the very bottom, in the largest crayon letters yet, last line, last spiral, last fire. Welcome back. May 14th, 2009, 3:14 a.m. The spiral was complete. Rhonda Selby stood at the edge of the Candle Street ruins, breathing in the warm air bleeding from beneath the stones. Around her, the town slept, unaware that the final line had been drawn. She hadn't told anyone she was going back. She knew better. The crayon sketch on her desk still glowed faintly, her in the chair. No caption. Just a small, spiral-shaped flame. Still flickering. She broke the seal herself. The concrete slab cracked in two as if it had been waiting. The stairwell below breathed heat and dust. As Rhonda descended, she heard it. Crayons scratching. Humming. Whispered laughter. But the basement had changed. It was perfect now. Rebuilt. The cribs were whole. The wallpaper clean. Candles burned gently along the walls. And in the center of the room, the chair. Still too big. Still wrong. But now occupied. The girl wasn't a child anymore. She was taller now. Thinner. Her face blank as if redrawn 100 times. Her eyes were wide spirals. Her hands melted down to dripping wax. She smiled without moving her mouth. Rhonda took a step forward. The girl's voice came from every corner of the room, layered, echoed, reversed. "You came back. The last one always does." Rhonda looked down. The floor beneath the chair had opened. Not like a trapdoor. Like a pupil widening. A spiraling tunnel of ash and soot. Down inside, she saw drawings floating like feathers. Stick figures screaming. Children holding candles. Spirals inside spirals. "You drew this?" Rhonda asked. "No," the girl said. "You did. Every time you remembered me." The spirals began to move beneath her feet. It all made sense now. The fires weren't the threat. They were the outline. The edges of the drawing. A boundary to trap the memory. But every time someone looked into the sketch, remembered the girl, followed the spiral back. It rewound and redrew itself. Why me? Rhonda asked. Because you listened. The girl extended a hand. Her fingers were crayons. Red, black, white. She offered one to Rhonda. Draw the last flame. Rhonda refuses. No, she said, stepping back. But the spiral pulsed. A low hum vibrated in her spine. Crayons rolled from the cracks in the walls. Candles tilted toward her, smoke curling into letters. Draw or burn. Draw or burn. Draw or... Then Rhonda saw it. A mirror, untouched by soot, leaning against the far wall. And in the mirror, herself already seated in the chair. Already drawing. Already smiling. But behind the mirror version of Rhonda, a hand reached up through the spiral beneath the chair. It grabbed her shoulder, and she kept smiling. The ash climbs. Rhonda turned to run, but the door had vanished. The cribs were now occupied, ash-formed children drawing endlessly into the floor, walls, their own skin. And as she moved, ash clung to her. Not burning, becoming. Wax gathered at her fingertips, and inside her chest, she could feel a humming begin, faint, warm, circular, like a candle relighting itself. Locals reported no fire that night. No explosion. No smoke. But at exactly 3:14 a.m., every mirror in Giles County cracked. Every vent blew warm air for 13 seconds. And in one home, a child woke to find a red crayon on his pillow, wrapped in a note. We needed someone new to draw now. On May 15th, a new video appeared on Tyler Grady's long-deleted YouTube channel. It was 12 seconds long. The screen, black. Audio, the sound of crayons. Then humming. And then a whisper. The chair is empty again. The screen flickered. A new drawing appeared. The entire town of Giles. Drawn in wax. Surrounded by a perfect spiral of fire. And at the center? Rhonda. In the chair. Smiling. Dr. Sims received a package the next morning. No return address. Inside, one white candle unlit, a red crayon, and a final sketch. It showed a new orphanage, built perfectly, windows glowing, children inside, 23 of them. And above the door, a sign. Candle Street Orphanage, EST soon.